Clint, you're going into your home track this weekend, and you're coming off a win. Talk a little bit about your team's preparation and expectations going into the race this weekend at Kansas Speedway.
Yeah, coming off of the win, obviously rolling into your hometown is a lot of fun. A lot of confidence, a lot of momentum, everything that comes off of a win. But to be able to do it rolling in, to home in Kansas is very special. A lot of testing over the next couple days. Looking forward to getting there and seeing what we have for a race car on the new repave. My teammate Mark Martin was there, did the test for us, said our cars were really good. So just anticipating a good weekend.
Thank you. And we will now go to the media for questions for today's NASCAR Cam Video teleconference guest, Clint Bowyer.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If at any time a question has been answered, you can remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. If you're using a speakerphone, we ask while posing your question, you pick up your handset to provide favorable sound quality. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Please hold briefly while we poll for questions. And our first question goes to Randy Cobbets of Kansas City Star.
Yeah, hey, Clint. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like sometimes you and Carl, too, maybe try too hard when you come to Kansas. You almost put a little too much pressure on yourself. Is that possible?
Oh, definitely, it's possible. But I mean, it's you put a lot of pressure on yourself because it's important to you. You know, it's important to run good in front of your hometown crowd and in front of your family and friends and everybody that comes out there. It's just an important weekend for Carl and I both. I mean, that's our home track, and I've gotten close a couple times. He's gotten close a couple times. Neither one of us has ever got the job done. So maybe this is the time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And our next question comes from Gary Fraley of Dallas Morning News.
Hey, Clint. I know you do the driving and your crew does the work and all, but how much being around Mark Martin this year, can you describe to what extent it's helped you in your performance?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Mark Martin is our ace in the hole at MWR. I mean, his experience, his wisdom, no matter what the conversation is just so beneficial. Having our pre-race, meetings, even post-race meetings. I mean, he's just always very dedicated and very driven and just kind of a role model for all of us. All of us have kind of been in this for a while now, but it never hurts to have a guy like that. I mean, he's just he's on it, whether it's on the racetrack or off.
Thank you.
Yep.
And our next question comes from Dwight Drum of Racetake.com.
Thank you. Clint, first, congratulations on your win. But the new point system, which starting at the Chasers 480 total points, and now at this point they're 240 points. How does this weigh on you guys? The new point system, or points, is so precious. Unless that top guy slips, and maybe has a crash early. And goes out and doesn't pick up points, and then you get the opportunity to move up. How does that weigh on you and your team, knowing that those points are so hard to get?
I think it's a positive thing for our sport. I mean, it's true. There's only just a few points here or there that kind of separate those chase drivers each and every week. But when you throw in a race like Talladega, it really shook things up. Had the 2-car not have got through there like he did, man, it would have opened the door back up for everybody. 4 races into the chase, it'd have been kind of like starting over again and wiping the slate clean. However, he didn't, and it's kind of everybody's chasing him and Jimmy Johnson. So I think it's a good thing. I like the point system the way it is. I think it's way easier to follow. And even so, going into these chase races, these last 5, I mean, it's going to be so crucial to get that 1 point. I mean, whether it's leading a lap or getting that next, position in front of you. We saw what that meant to Tony Stewart in winning the championship by 1 point. I mean, it's going to be very, very important to get every point you can.
And
what's that?
All right. Once again, if you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. That's star 1 on your telephone keypad. Our next question comes from Ben Montanico of BleacherReport.com.
few years, driver safety has taken quite a huge role in the rule changes that NASCAR has made. In light of what happened to Dale Earnhardt Jr. following his crashes at both Kansas and Talladega, it was announced that he had a concussion, actually 2 concussions in a very short span. Is it time for NASCAR to start taking a proactive approach in making sure that drivers with concussions don't further endanger themselves?
Well, I mean, it's, I don't think, I think it worked out perfect. I mean, we had a problem with the driver. He saw the attention that he needed to understand what was going on with him, and is getting the right help and taking the right time off. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, in my opinion, it kind of polices itself when a guy wrecks as hard as he did, within a couple of weeks of each other. I mean, it's a bad situation to be in. No different it is in any other sport. But we're a tight-knit family in this sport, and everybody, knows everybody, and everybody knows what's going on in your surroundings. So, whether they need to do something or not, at the end of the day, the appropriate actions were taken, and they're seeking the right attention that he deserves.
I also wanted to ask you real quick about Talladega. A lot of drivers have complained about that track being a part of the chase. I know it's one that you've had a lot of success at. Do you think Talladega deserves a place in the chase, or do you think it's time to maybe look elsewhere for another track to take its spot?
I mean, I love Talladega. Obviously, I was pretty dejected after the race this time, but I was on the short end of the stick. Everybody knows going into Talladega, you're not always going to pull out a win or even a top 5. I mean, sooner or later, it's bound to catch up to you. And it did, unfortunately. But look how it shook the chase up. I mean, had it not have been that race, those 2 or 3 guys, were going to be pulling away from each other, and there just really wasn't anything to shake it up. So I'm glad there is a wild card race in there that can shake things up. There's still a few more. Martinsville's one of them. Anything can happen at Martinsville. Kansas, on a repave. Nobody's been there. Nobody knows what to expect. Nobody has a notebook going into this race. That can change the look of the chase, in a big way. So I'd kind of, like to see one of these road courses in the chase. For whatever reason, in the last 2 or 3 years, they've become some of the best forms of racing that we have, the best product of racing and for our fans. So I think, having seen that, I think we ought to look into maybe one of those road course races, for the chase.
Thanks, Clint, and good luck this weekend at your home track.
Thank you, man. These are so
And once again, we'll go to DwightJermelRaceTape.com.
Thank you, Clint. You mentioned change, and obviously change came about today with NASCAR with the qualifying on speed. But all the changes that have happened since, especially since you've come up, and there have been a lot of them. How do you adapt well with the? What do you consider your ability to adapt and your team's ability to adapt to these changes?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to do that. I mean, adapting is the name of the game in this sport. There's so many different things that happen through the course of a year, through the course of a weekend, through the course of a race. I mean, you've just got to be able to adapt to whatever the situation is and make the most out of it. That's when the cream rises to the top, and you separate the men from the boys. So whether it's a new rule package, a new qualifying package, or whatever the case may be, we'll all adapt to it and make the best of it, and continue to put on a good show for our fans.
Oh, great. Thanks. Good luck with it.
Thanks, man.
Our next question comes from Robert DeRogia, BRD Broadcasting.
Thank you. Clint, because you have those top 10 finishes at Kansas, and of course because it's the home track, considered your home track, does that add more pressure on you, not only because of the Kansas track, plus it's also the chase going on for the Cup, and this is just not the normal type of race during the season. So do you get more pressure from those situations?
Yeah, I think you do. I mean, there's pressure no matter where you look in this sport. It doesn't matter, what weekend it is, whether it's the Daytona 500, the first, race, or the 4th race, or the last race. I mean, there's always pressure to perform, not only for your race team, for your sponsors and everybody involved. It's just a pressure-driven sport, and I think that's why it's watched and so important each and every week. It's just, You can't get
well,
away from the pressure.
Consider everything going on, with this track and then 3 after this. Keep climbing up in the point standings, and we wish you the luck on it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Once again, you can press star 1 on your telephone keypad for any questions. That's star 1 on your telephone keypad for any questions. Our next question comes from Brad Winningham of RacingWheel.com.
Clint, my question is, how do you go into a race weekend differently where you have testing Wednesday and Thursday and a normal weekend Friday through Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot more practice on the racetrack, but it's because it's a repave and nobody's seen it before, and more importantly, the track needs to get rubber, burnt into it and get cleaned off. And we kind of saw that at Phoenix, where the track was dirty, and it really took a long time, a lot more time than anyone expected to get the rubber burnt in. And once we did, we ended up seeing one of the best races I've seen at Phoenix in a long time. I went into that weekend thinking it was going to be a major bummer, and by the end of it, I came out of there super pumped up and excited about the racing surface and what we had. So there's a couple different purposes being served there this weekend at Kansas, but to be able to go through all that practicing and just making sure you go through all the things that work, things you want to try. This is an opportunity to get all those through the notebook, and that way the guys, the engineers, can look at the simulation and see what all those changes did and make sense out of it before you get to the weekend, and down to the nitty gritty.
And my next question is, this week we qualified on a Friday. Which schedule do you prefer and why?
Just selfishly, as a race car driver, I like it Friday right after practice. I don't care if it's Saturday. It's hard for me to practice Friday and then wait overnight and go through farting around at dinner and getting your mind off of hitting your marks and exactly where those marks were, not only in race trim, but to separate that from qualifying trim. When it's in a Friday qualifying session, a lot of times the last time you're on the racetrack before you qualify was in qualifying trim and that given conditions, and you go out and it's easier to bust a lap off. Now, however, I think it definitely shakes things up and makes us earn our money when it's the next day, and you have a lot more time to think about it, time to change things, and kind of second guess yourself on where you're running on the racetrack and your lap.
All right, well, thank you, and good luck this weekend at your home track in Kansas.
Thanks, bud.
Our next question comes from Patrick Alebi of NASCAR Production.
Hi, Clint. You mentioned earlier that Martinsville is a wild card factor in the chase. How big of a factor is that for you, being at your 4.4 and fourth right now in the chase standings?
Well, I think, believe it or not, I think Martinsville is a track where we can win at. We just keep getting better and better there. I've gotten, a lot better there over the years, and building a brand new race car that we got a lot of confidence in, and really looking forward to Martinsville to hopefully, get us another win. I mean, there's still a couple of racetracks here where I feel like we can win at and continue to stay in the hunt for this championship.